Na 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 Nolan-oscopy. I'm Al Schwartz.
Wow.
I got John Bernard and Chris Prentice here with me to talk about Batman Begins. Let's just dive
Nice.
in.
That's good. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm just
I did
gonna
not did
throw it
not
to you.
expect that. I'm caught
I
off
didn't.
guard.
I didn't think of it until 10 seconds ago. But
Oh.
now, let me just throw this at you guys right off the bat.
Yeah.
Did this movie save superhero movies from being terrible, or did it ruin superhero movies?
Good question. I think it saved them.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the end of the day, yes. Now that doesn't excuse everything done in the name of this film, but yeah, I think superhero movies and movies in general are in a very different place right now without Batman Begins.
But I mean, were superhero movies at the time this came out really in trouble? I don't think so. I mean, you had
No,
Not
because
as
you're right. This is
Spider-Man.
post X. Spider-Man and X-Men had sort of had done some work legitimizing the genre,
Yeah,
but
I mean,
this
it's almost did this save Batman is, kind of maybe what
Oh
I would
well,
ask.
absolutely yes. In that case, this reinvented Batman. This is why Batman holds the place in society that he does now. I mean, the Dark Knight I think gets more of the credit for it, but it's all right here. The groundwork for it is here. I mean, obviously that's not entirely true, but the animated series, the Burton, all that, the several decades of legacy, Dark Knight Returns, all very important. But this, I do think, is maybe the most influential superhero movie of the last 20 years. Like,
one of the most influential movies, full stop.
yes,
I mean, I guess just ever you could say. I mean, because
possibly.
we're talking, if you're saying of a 10 or 20 year stretch, then yeah, it's on the short list forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you're right. This is obviously one of the most influential in the last 10 to 20. 20, because this is 17 years old now. Jesus
That's
Christ,
crazy.
that really blew my mind putting that together.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize it until Joffrey showed up, and I was like, "Holy shit!
Yeah.
Look at Joffrey!" Yeah, mm-hmm.
It was so it was also weird for me to see Christian Bale like playing a teenager or like a 20-year-old.
Yeah,
Convincingly,
not.
yeah.
Pretty
I don't.
convincingly.
It doesn't
You
seem
can
all that
squint and it works. It's
convincing.
10 minutes. It's for 10
I know.
minutes.
No, I mean it's better than having somebody else play that character. I would say, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes.
They just kind of give him a dopey haircut, and that's about it.
Yeah, I'm surprised how effective that haircut is.
Yeah, somewhat.
I just Christian. I know Christian Bale was a child performer and all, but like, I don't think I ever watched his child performances.
Oh,
So
you never
for me, my
saw.
introduction to him was Patrick Bateman, and
Oh wow, you gotta
he's
see
always
Empire of the
been an
Sun.
angry adult man to me.
Oh, he's in so many. He's in Newsies. He's in Empire of the Sun. He's in Henry V. That's always been a big one for me because it was he's the Shakespeare kid, and that he's in a ton of stuff.
Well, the Shaft remake, he's not really a kid, but he's a pretty good jerk in it.
Oh yeah, he's great in that.
That's
kind of a fun movie.
It is. Yeah, Jeffrey Wright's
Isn't that
great.
post American Psycho though?
I think that was like just before American Psycho, maybe, or it was around the same time.
Well, okay. So in terms of this movie's influence, you guys are saying you're right. It didn't fully create the superhero genre. It was sort of superhero genre was already on the rise, especially via Spider-Man. Spider-Man proved the genre's bona fides as a blockbuster thing. I mean, if Tim Burton's Batman or Donner Superman hadn't decades earlier, but it had proved it recently, and X-Men had shown that you could do it like a little more adult. But if X-Men proved that you could do a PG-13 version of superheroes, Batman Begins, I think this sets the stage for we can do R-rated superheroes. Even though Batman Begins is a PG-13 movie, I think you can make a case that The Dark Knight is an R-rated movie in a PG-13 movie's clothes. It's just
It's
like
an
one or two
R-rated
trimmed
movie
F-bombs away.
that has a huge corporation behind it and was probably able to grease enough wheels to get it a PG-13.
Well, and just to work the refs on the the
Yeah,
MPAA's system for rating is so ridiculous,
Yeah.
it's
and
terrible. Yeah.
we usually talk about that in terms of how you can get like a pretty family friendly movie that gets bumped up to R on the basis of like a little naughty language or a glimpse of nipple or something. But they worked in the opposite way, where that is a movie for entirely for adults, uh, not very friendly to your average 10-year-old whatsoever. But because they avoid the f bombs and the nipples, they
Yeah.
get to slap a PG-13 on it.
Yeah, and sold it. I mean, again, this movie wasn't like a crazy hit at the time either. It did pretty well, but they weren't sure they were going to make another. It made like 200 million at
Yeah,
the
it was
time.
kind of up in the air as to,
Hmm.
whether, at least at the time, oh, is this going to be enough to really launch this into a whole franchise? It was kind of a debate, but obviously, good thing they did because they sure had a
Hmm.
windfall with the next film.
I think the next one kind of elevated this one's status too, because I think now people kind of recognize that Batman Begins totally fucking rules. It's a really really successful film, and I don't think that was its reputation upon coming out. I don't know. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. Watching
No,
it now,
I
it's
think
hard to
you're
imagine.
remembering it
Yeah.
right, actually. I mean, I think it was a little more mixed when it came out. I think probably the problem that some people may have had was, and it's right there in the title, is that this is Batman Begins. This is about as origin heavy as any superhero movie has ever gotten,
Hmm.
and I think that was actually kind of my complaint somewhat when it came out, is that it's like, my God, we are really getting every nook and cranny of Batman beginning here, and it felt like it was a bit much. But then when you have Dark Knight and you kind of see, okay, it was worth going through the beginning to get to Dark Knight, and that gives you the better appreciation for Batman Begins.
Yeah. Okay, and let's just get this out of the
That's
way.
definitely true.
Let's-
But oh, sorry. What? Go ahead.
No, I mean, let's just. Is this the better film than Dark Knight, or is Dark Knight the better? Who? What do you prefer? Which of the two is your favorite here?
Dark Knight is better. No, absolutely
Yeah.
no question.
Yes.
3,000%.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot closer than I used to. I think they're pretty close. Dark Knight's better, yes, but this one's really fucking good, man. This one is on point, and it's probably the best quote unquote Batman movie.
This is what I was going to ask you. Okay,
Mm.
because I was asking. I mean, do you love this movie? And it sounds like you do. I think
I think I do.
going off kind of what Chris was saying, there's a couple three things that hold me back from like really loving this movie, as opposed to like appreciating it and sort of what it does and what it sets up for later in the series, especially. But um, one of them is, like I said, this is, despite being the start of a brand new Batman series with a brand new Batman and new continuity, it is a prequel. It feels like a prequel. Like the end of the movie is like, the vibe there is definitely like, okay, now we're going to start the real story.
Yes.
I think that related to that, you get a couple of other issues that are tied in, like because of that we don't get the very best of like Batman's rogues gallery
For
deployed
sure.
here. Like I know that Ra's al Ghul is kind of a big figure in the Batman mythos, and people like him. But in here, it feels like we chose him as a villain because he's the most grounded. He is a evil version of Batman. He is just a guy with some ninja powers and money to burn. And you can do him that way. It's easier to do him that way than it is to do a grounded version of the Penguin or Mister Freeze or Clayface, or even the
Yeah.
Joker, who's the most obvious choice.
Well, yes, I would agree. In a sense, I mean, I don't think that there's a version of the Nolan Batman that can fight Clayface. But I mean, it would have been kind of fun to see him try, maybe. And I think that they'll run into trouble when they, in the third movie, when they sort of run out of, the ground that they could continue this mode in. But I
I don't
love
know.
the
I
choice.
thought there was more. They could have done a Riddler in this mode.
They could have done a Riddler, and
I
they
think
could have done a Penguin.
honestly,
They could have done a Penguin.
Oh, easily.
yeah.
Yeah. Penguin
Yeah.
for sure.
Right.
Yeah, he wouldn't be much of a penguin. He would just be a
No,
crime boss. But
yeah.
which is kind,
Well,
which
he
is
But I
wouldn't be
think
the
what it,
Burton.
that's what
Yeah.
it looks like they're going with in the new one. Is it's basic. I mean, it doesn't really look like Colin Farrell is anything close to like a what we kind of envision as the Penguin.
I
right.
mean, it looks like he's doing Tom Wilkinson to me, which makes me very happy. Uh,
I think you could even do a Killer Croc in Nolan's version. It would just be like a bodybuilder with skin con- conditions,
yeah.
but you could
I
almost pull
mean,
that off.
yeah, it is a bit limiting in that sense. You kind of get to you miss out on the more grotesque Baroque characters from the Rogues Gallery, which is a huge part of Batman, obviously. But I do love what the villains in this because they were chosen so well thematically.
Yeah,
They are perfectly
Yes.
on point for what this movie is about, which is it's about Bruce Wayne. It's about this character. It is a
Mhm.
psychological investigation of Batman, and no
Yeah,
one had
and
ever
it's about
really done
the
that on
nature of
film before.
fear,
Yeah,
that's
and
the whole
it's
and the
thing.
it's
Scarecrow is
fear.
perfect for that.
So of course you want to use Scarecrow for that,
Of
and
course.
the fear toxin. And Ra's al Ghul is yes the evil version of Batman. He is the person who crosses the line. And why is that? And so it's an investigation of why Batman has a no kill rule, which he doesn't always have, but this version does. And all that stuff, like it's really good, I think, because if you want to make a movie about Batman, not about his villains, all the Burton movies are about the villains,
Villains.
100%.
Mhm.
The first one with Joker, it's a Universal monster movie about a guy who wants to be an artist, and Batman is like a supporting character in it. He's the Van Helsing.
Still great though.
Yeah, it's great,
Yeah.
but it's a Joker movie.
Yeah,
And and the second one, who the hell even knows what it's just monsters and grotesques,
yeah.
and
It's
weird
this.
sex
This
fetishes.
the second
Yeah,
one is Batman Scissorhands. I mean,
yeah.
that's the whole. Burton just
Mm.
went cuckoo with it, but um, yeah, I like the villains for sure in Batman Begins. I think it's kind of a jip for how long we don't get to see Neeson. I mean, it's like I really like him up front,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to wait, and for who's supposedly the main villain of the film, you got to wait an awfully long time before you see him again. And as good as I think Murphy is as a Scarecrow, I don't know. It's basically just him putting the sack on his head, and that's kind of it. I mean, it's just I know
Yeah.
we want grounded, and that's the whole name of the game with these movies. But it's he's very good. It's just it's not the best. It's not exactly what I want out of the Scarecrow, but Murphy does enough with it to make it work, and because it ties in so much with the theme of Bruce Wayne and his fears, it does ultimately work pretty well within the story that Nolan's trying to tell.
Well,
Yeah.
I think part of my frustration going back to it now, I mean, it's not like huge amounts of frustration, but just why it's clicked for me that much is, yeah, it does make sense, like you were saying earlier, John, that to start with the more grounded villains that are easier to do in the grounded context, like Scarecrow or Ra's al Ghul. But I think actually, sort of counterintuitively, uh, the more outlandish, grandiose villains work the best in with the Nolan aesthetic. That the Joker and Bane are the like highlights of their respective films.
Well,
Uh,
yes, but I think that's because the groundwork is there from this film. I do believe that, like
yeah.
that you bring in
Okay.
the Bale Batman forward, having got all the work of we understand this character intrinsically at this point, and he is defines Batman. This is a really great sort of interrogation of what's interesting about Batman, just as presented, uh, in a relatable way, beyond just sort of a cartoon character. So with that done, you can kind of get into the meat of the villains later on, and Bane, I don't know, but the Joker for sure. The
Yeah,
Joker is, and again, that works so well because Nolan kind of looks inside what the Joker is about, not as a person
Mhm.
necessarily, but what he represents within the world of Batman, and makes a movie about that. And that's why these are so fucking good. He takes relatable ideas, universal
Yeah.
ideas, and crafts narratives and characters around him. I'm kind of shocked that he's such a good fit for these studio comic book hero movies, like based on the films we've watched up to this point. Like
What
he's so good at these.
Well, that to
Do
me
we think he would be a good fit for any other superhero besides Batman, though?
Maybe not.
but
Maybe not
that
at all.
that
Yeah.
that was what they were doing with. That's to me, that's one of the big differences between the superhero films from the early 2000s as opposed to most of what gets made now, is they were always trying to look for very interesting directors, kind of either up and coming or people that had a real sense of their own style, and it wasn't trying to fit a larger catalog of movies. It was like, okay, we like what we've seen of Nolan. We think you'd be good with Batman. Whatever you think of the 2003 Hulk, going with Ang Lee was an interesting choice. Sam Raimi was
Yeah.
Spider-Man. They were always trying to look for very kind of interesting directors. And yeah, I think based on what Nolan had done previously, you can kind of say for what that the type of Batman movie that they were going for, and that they wanted something much more grounded, much more realistic. He was, I think, an ideal choice at that time.
Yeah, I mean, as it turns out, I mean, I think it's undeniable now. But yeah, that's foresight that I wouldn't have had. I mean, and in just the approach of this film. I mean, honestly, it makes it seem easy what's going on. Like it's not doing anything too particularly fancy here. It's
No.
just being like, this is the Batman character. We're going to craft a bunch of scenes that explain why he is the way he is, and they're going to be satisfying character beats throughout. The first scene with Commissioner Gordon or Detective, whatever he is.
Lieutenant.
Lieutenant, I
When
think.
he
Yeah.
when he comforts the child, that ends up completely defining that relationship for the next three films in a way that makes visceral sense and is satisfying in a Hollywood blockbuster way. It's all the little pieces really just fall into place on this one.
I would
I'm
quibble
in
with
all
one
in on
thing
it.
you said there,
Sure.
which is about making it look easy. Because I think
Mhm.
that the Nolan style in these films are one that make the effort very evident. And
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
Zimmer's scores pounding the ominous important button at pretty much every juncture.
There's operatic
And
speeches, yes.
yeah, and then Bale is such an intense actor and all that. Uh, yeah, I would certainly never call anything part of this trilogy breezy.
No, not really breezy exactly. I wouldn't say easy breezy. But
Yeah,
I do think it's done uh, with a lot of economy and a lot of grace. I really do believe that this is written very intelligently and really
yeah.
and I mean I think he gets a hell of a lot of value out of his actors. Like the cast in this thing is outrageous,
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah.
and
Every
he leans
time.
on them to
Yeah.
pull off some kind of ornate
With one
dialogue.
exception.
Yeah, with one exception,
Oh, come
unfortunately.
on. Come on. I mean, give her a break.
That's one of my three things
I mean, it's
that
enough
I think hold this
already.
movie back. No,
Yeah, I
it's just
understand what you mean, and it's not a gift of a role by any means. Uh,
I think the role is okay on the page. It's
it's
not
I,
fantastic, but
I
it's
mean,
just she
she's
is
there to be
Katie Holmes is
rescued. That's it.
no, no,
I
she
don't know.
has
She's got a
more
couple
things.
other things to contribute to the script at different points,
No, but
but
I
the
mean,
problem is that
I don't think she's
Katie Holmes
that
just
bad.
can't present as an adult. She is
I think
forever a
that's
teenager.
a bit of the
Uh,
problem. Yeah, I don't think it's that she's awful. I don't think she's terrible in this at all. I just think that she's up against a murderer's row here. She's really she's got
yeah,
a lot of really good people in this cast with her, and everyone shows up. Everyone's really here. Like Liam Neeson, a guy who'll phone stuff in if he doesn't give a shit. He's absolutely engaged here. Michael Caine, really, wow, what an amount of gravitas he's bringing. Gary Oldman, Morgan Freeman, all these people who could be just cashing a check are not,
Yeah,
and
they're all into it.
she's not up to it. Yeah,
I don't think she's that
yeah.
bad.
Well, no, I don't think she's that bad. I think it's really just that she presents as a teenager, like that. She does not feel to me a contemporary or a peer of Christian Bale, who's only like 4 years older than her or something. Uh, but and when she's supposed to be like an assistant district attorney, like I just like maybe I see a summer intern there, but
mm-hmm.
even even when she's like 43, she's more believable as a 23-year-old than as a 43-year-old. I would think that's just. I mean, it's not the worst like genetic curse to have as a person or an actor,
Right.
but I think it serves this role poorly.
Should have been the Hathaway role.
You think she would
Yeah.
have been better
Well,
there?
Yeah.
Really?
I
Okay.
don't know. Maybe she's too young at this point.
Yeah.
I'm actually not sure what age she is. But
I think Hathaway had an ability to play up
mhm.
more than Katie Holmes has ever demonstrated.
Yeah, and I think
I think Gyllenhaal, when we get to Dark Knight, is a clear trade up, and partly because
Yes.
she reads as an adult, always
Yeah.
has in everything I've ever seen her.
Yes, that helps. Like if you've just replaced her with replaced Katie Holmes with Gyllenhaal somehow magically, I don't think anyone would complain about that.
Well,
That
who
would be
who
great.
who I also really love in this, and even though it's just a few scenes, but I just every time
I know where this is
shows
going.
up is a Rutger Hauer. I
Oh,
think he's
Yeah.
I thought you
great.
were going straight for Wilkinson, but okay.
We'll get to Wilkinson.
Wilkinson's fine. Yeah, I think anytime Howard shows up, I smile. I don't know. He's just perfect for this type of character.
The list of character actors in this, beyond just
Yeah.
the major roles, I mean, you've got like
Mark
you said,
Boone
Murder's
Jr..
Row.
Oh, yeah.
Mark Boone Jr. showing up. Richard Brake showing up as Joe Chill.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Joffrey, of course.
Mhm.
Rutger Hauer. Ken Watanabe shows up to do nothing.
Yeah, virtually
Rade
nothing.
Zerbejia.
Wow,
the
did you
homeless
practice that for a while?
I might be wrong. I don't know.
Sounds right to me. I mean, I wouldn't even try to attempt it. So it sounded good.
And I think a really terrific little performance in this. Linus Roche as Thomas
Oh, yeah.
Wayne is excellent in
Yeah.
like 4 minutes.
He's good.
Yeah.
Completely establishes who that character needs to be for this film to work, and he's great. And he's also, I mean, it's fun because he's the guy from Mandy now.
Yeah.
That's a new fun thing.
Well, you got him
yeah.
from Mandy, and Richard Brake was in Mandy.
Richard Brake.
You've got a couple Mandy regulars in this movie.
I didn't realize Batman Begins, led to Mandy. I guess was a Batman Begins reunion. Then
Who knew?
That's
Who knew?
cool. You've seen that one, right, Al? It's so good.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't remember that Richard Brake was in there, but
He's
the guy with the tiger.
Yeah. It's a
you remember the
brief
chainsaw
but
fight,
memorable role.
No, it's an overall casting is great. It's a real strength of Nolan's. Like he really hardly ever fucks that up. I would like to let's talk about Tom Wilkinson for a second.
Yes.
Yeah,
it is very rare. I don't know that anybody ever manages to have this much fun in a Nolan movie, like on a Nolan set, as Tom Wilkinson manages.
Not often.
In this. Like Joey Pants is having a decent time in Memento, I guess. But Wilkinson, I have it's hard for me to imagine that he's actually being directed this way, and that he's not just like, I signed up to do like an Adam West thing, and I'm like not.
Yeah, it's very Damon Runyon-esque, very Guys and Dolls kind of. He's like, hey, listen here, Wayne. But the dialogue is heightened too. God, he's fun in this. It's such a good performance. It's so entertaining. Yeah. Every scene he shows up, I perk up a little. Like, ooh, what's he gonna say now?
Yeah,
it's like, I the walls are closing in. Blah blah blah. I'm just like, oh,
well, he's
wonderful.
Definitely not someone that I would have, if you would have envisioned as a good, as the crime kingpin of Gotham City, Tom Wilkinson. It doesn't quite add up, but yeah, he is. He's quite good. He's fantastic. Actually, he's one of my favorite performances in the film.
Me too, very much. Yeah,
I wish there was more of him, to be honest.
It's like Me Ledger, Bale, and then Wilkinson in the. Then maybe Kane. No. I mean, it's fun, like a duck. Yeah, you've never tasted desperate.
He's great. He's a lot of fun. Like I said, that when the villains are allowed to go a little bigger, it still works really well with this field, because in this grounded world he's creating, the villains do need to be pretty big in order to like justify his complete overreaction of dressing up like a bat and running around punching people. To try and justify that leap in this grounded world, I think the villains do have to be kind of bigger, larger than life. even though relative to other comic book movies, they're very grounded.
Well, and also
I mean,
since you don't have Neeson for most of the movie, you better have some good people that can kind of fill in during that long gap.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Wilkinson really shines is, even though you're missing out on Neeson for probably like, an hour plus, he distracts you from that fact and gives you another villain to chew on for a while.
yeah, and then there's Cillian Murphy.
Yeah.
Picks right up, right as the Wilkinson section is dying down. And then you get Scarecrow doing a bunch of weird, creepy boy stuff, and yeah, it's
Yeah, he's
I
sort of
mean,
the bridge between
yeah.
the Falcone and the Ra's al Ghul sections, I suppose.
Yeah, it's. I really think this is a very well structured film in that regard, and this is kind of what I'm talking about when I say he makes this look easy. Like I don't believe Nolan is a guy who makes films look easy very often. I think you're often quite aware of the work going into these things.
I think
in
he
this
would
one,
be the example I would use to try to try and reference that phenomenon.
yeah, exactly. And this one, I think he lets go a lot of that stuff and just tells a story fairly straightforward, with the themes that are very graspable. Like this is a movie where, I think it's intelligent and has thematic ideas and things it's pulling off, but it's not, there's nothing hidden about it. It's very straightforward.
Right.
This is something that your dad will watch and be like, yeah, he's dealing with his own fear, like it's all very straightforward,
Yeah,
it's
there's
just
no puzzle
well
box
handled.
here other than like
Yeah.
the fake out villain, reveal is the
Mhm.
only like trick or twist that is at play here. Which sidebar, a quibble has been bothering me for 17 years here. Like
Okay.
that there's just every once in a while in a movie that I like, there'll be one line that just sticks with me and I'm like, that's just either it's a bad line or it's like
Right.
that there's an obvious way to make this better. And this one that just it's been it's scratching my mind for 17 years. And in Lisa's introduction, Bale asks him who he is, and he says, "My name is merely Ducard, but I represent blah blah blah." I'm like, no, nobody's name is merely something. What?
And Ducard is not merely a name either. Ducard.
No,
No,
it's not.
that's a great phony name. That's one of the better phony
It's,
names you can
it's a
have.
Costanza name.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But it's just like, how hard is it to delete the word merely from this sentence to make it
But it's all about
be
theatricality.
easier?
Yes,
That's the whole thing.
He's one
Well,
man.
and
Is the
deception,
idea.
and it ruins the deception.
The idea is I am merely this one person. I am only one man, but one man is
Right.
you can be more than that. You can be a legend if you take the teachings of the League of Shadows into it. I'm turning into the Bane voice already here, but yeah, that
It's more entertaining that way.
It
no,
is.
no defense to Neeson, but
I don't know. I think the League of Shadows should have ended with this film. Personally, I think it's perfectly deployed here. I don't need him again later. Yeah.
I don't know. Well,
We'll talk about this
we'll
sometime,
get we'll get to Dark Knight Rises eventually. But I think that the League of Shadows is a great, very well deployed here, and sort of like you mentioned earlier, John, that Ra's is a dark, version of Batman who will cross those lines or whatever, and I think that's right. But it's not so much that the line he'll cross as that he'll kill and Batman won't. Although that's how it's sort of set up at the beginning. I mean, very explicitly in the scene where they have their breakup.
Yeah.
But I think that what makes Ra's al Ghul an effective villain here and plays into like a real strength of the Nolan series is that he is Batman if he without Batman's sense of like civic pride or like civic loyalty to the city, and the idea that presenting Gotham City as an idea and as a thing that whose soul is being battled over throughout this trilogy is something that's I think actually done very effectively.
Yeah.
And that I think more than the line of, I'll kill people or I'll throw them off of something, but I won't kill them or I don't have to save you, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like that's what inherits. But the thing is that Ra's al Ghul has the same like drives and anger as Batman at, the scourge of crime and so forth, but he's willing to kill the patient to exercise the disease. And Batman is not, and that's what makes Batman the heroic version. and what I think allows Batman to remain a heroic figure, even though he is a lunatic and a billionaire that is not very sympathetic to us in a lot of ways. But he
Yes.
has that sense of civic duty.
Yeah, Ra's al Ghul really dislikes Gotham City. I mean, he has such disdain. I mean, it's. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen a villain that really just hates a specific city this much. I mean, usually it's take over the whole world, it's steal a lot of money, it's just kill people. But it's a very specific Gotham City axe to grind for him, which is kind of unique.
Well,
He said,
they
"Fuck your particular couch."
have they
Yeah,
Bruce Wayne.
kind of identified Gotham as like the focal point of
everything.
all the things wrong with modern culture. You know, just like it is the symbolic city. I mean, it is New York and Chicago and all the places we live,
Yeah.
and it is
Yes.
uh, just emblematic of societal rot and cultural rot. And I guess that's the idea. And I mean, he's a guy obviously who deals in symbolism quite a bit.
Yeah.
So that's
Well,
the general idea, which and then that's what he teaches now, Wayne, and then and he
Yeah,
takes that
but
to
the thing that separates him is that Wayne agrees with that like diagnosis, but he wants to save it, and
yeah.
Ross says no. It's we just have to burn the place down and start over, and that's a philosophical conflict that is interesting, and I think better articulated than in a lot of superhero movies.
I
it's the
agree.
kind it's the kind of city where you can go to the most fancy opera in all of town and then walk right outside and you're in a complete den of filth. It's a
Yeah,
real.
Oh, that New York's like that. That's very New York. I used to work in the meatpacking district down here, which is a neighborhood where they have like the Standard Hotel and just these fancy eateries right across the street from places where they are literally packing meat. And so like if you walk 20 feet down the street, you're just you're going from people sitting down for cocktails at tables where they're spending $1,500 to be there, and then you're smelling just a bucket full of shit that a homeless man left behind just right down. That's a city thing, and
yeah.
and that's Gotham to me. That's what's so great about it, and that crime alley scene. That's
I did want to mention that.
yeah.
In contrast, like how much better is the killing of the Waynes scene
Oh, it's so
in
good.
this than in like the Zack Snyder version?
The Zack Snyder one is wretched. This is probably the best one
It's
ever.
incredible.
I
This
like
is
I like
this
the
is
Burton one. I don't know. I like
that one's okay. It's
that-
so expressionist.
I like
Yeah, it's right for that milieu.
the young Nicholson guy. I don't even know who he was, but I thought he was
He's
great.
memorable.
Yes.
Yeah, he's fun.
Hey kid.
No, but Linus Roach, that Thomas Wayne is the star of this one, and is so effective there that it's drawn out a bit. The complaint now is like with Uncle Ben or Bruce Wayne's parents is, oh, we've seen them die so many times, we don't need to waste time with this stuff anymore. You hear that a lot.
Yeah.
But in this one, like it's drawn out. There's a point where he drops the wallet, and you think that's when he's going to get shot, but it doesn't. Like he's still de-escalating until the guy jerks the gun over to point, at the kid, and then he lunges and it goes bad. But like I said, it in such a short amount of time establishes exactly who Thomas Wayne is and makes you really like feel the tragedy there. In a way that I don't feel bad for. I don't feel bad for if he just takes a wild swing at the mugger. Like I don't feel bad for that guy. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
not
so
as
fucking
bad.
shit. That's just the worst thing ever. I can't believe they did that. But yeah, this one plays out like an actual shooting in an alley would. I love that there's no slow motion pearls breaking on the ground shot. That's really nice. It's like the only one without that. It's the least operatic and therefore like the most like kind of chilling and real. And I think what's really cool about it, like maybe my favorite thing about it, is Joe Chill, Richard Brake is terrified.
Yeah.
Like he's the
Which
most
plays into the
scared
fear
person ever.
motif.
Yes.
He's
You know,
as afraid as
that's how.
anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's what gives me the idea that Batman is an effective tool against criminals who are, as we all know, are a superstitious and cowardly lot.
Of course. The best.
Another one of the best lines.
Yeah. And And yeah, I like that they were watching an opera with creepy bats in it, and that made Bruce feel scared. So then they leave as a result of that, and he carries that really kind of misplaced guilt forever because
Is it
it's awesome.
misplaced? I don't know if it's that misplaced. I mean, he was the one who got afraid. They got up, they left. I mean, I don't know if it. I mean, it's not that
And that
misplaced.
fear haunts him. That fear is the thing that drives. Like,
Yeah.
I will conquer this fear. It
Yeah,
destroyed everything. It
it's
took
very
everything
much
from me.
placed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose to Chris's point, it's squarely placed. It's just a bit outsized.
They should have went to
Fair
go see
enough.
Zorro. Should have gone to Zorro.
Or Excalibur, was it? In the I don't know. Anyway. So okay, let me get on to my final gripe with this movie. The other thing I think holds it back from being as good as the others, and that's just the inability to do a good fight scene.
Oh
with
yeah,
Batman.
Yeah, I
that's
can't
my
deny
biggest
that.
gripe.
Yeah.
They work around
Yeah.
it in some effective ways, like sort of the sparring session with Ra's al Ghul on the frozen lake. We're getting like thematic and character stuff there, but the action itself is nothing that coherent or exciting. The dock scene, I think, is fun as a alternative. If there was a really good fight scene in this movie, then the dock scene would be fantastic. It's a great diversion. If we had confidence that it could do good fight scenes and was choosing to do this more theatrical thing, just as a change of pace, I think it would be easier to appreciate that. Whereas because it's so incoherent everywhere else, and it seems like they're just working around limitations.
Yeah, you like the dock scene early on because it is sort of the first like legitimate action that we're seeing Batman. So the fact that it's kind of hidden and you're not really seeing everything exactly, it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of like the perspective of the guys on the dock. So that makes sense.
Mm.
But then as the rest of the movie goes on, it's like, oh, he just doesn't really do action very well. That's all that's really going on here. It
Mm.
certainly got better in The Dark Knight, but yeah, that's the fact that this movie doesn't really have even the big tumbler chase. I don't. It's okay. I don't think it's anything fantastic. There's really not one action beat in this movie that I really thoroughly can watch over. Every now and again and be like, oh, what a great action sequence. It's just that's not in this movie.
I mean, I can't say otherwise on that. I do think the dock scene is exceptional. I mean, I really like it. I don't really think of it as an action scene though. It's like a like a horror movie scene, and
Yeah.
that's what's cool about it. It's shot and
Yeah.
staged like a horror movie, like with a monster stalking people sequence. In a way, honestly, that's using like
Yeah.
cinematic language to tell you that. Like so your dad will be like, "Hey, that's shot like a horror movie." Like it's communicating what it's doing very clearly. But it's good. It's
Yeah.
really successful. It's
It-
It's
cool.
good. Yeah, I like that.
Fear, theatricality, and deception, and
Right, and that's fine.
Yes, it is.
But it does. Then you see the action later on in the movie, and you're like, well,
yeah.
it's just, yeah, that's effective the way they do it in that initial scene. But you think, okay, that's sort of like the appetizer. We're gonna really get some humdinging fighting going on here pretty soon, and it never materializes.
I don't think
Yeah,
Nolan
and
ever cracks this nut, honestly. I don't think he ever
no,
becomes
well,
really good
It's
at this.
better in Dark Knight.
It's definitely
it's
better.
Yeah.
it's better. I think actually that there's the fight with Bane in Dark Knight Rises. I think is like a
That's good.
finally like a good fist fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's not just Nolan, but it took a lot of tries at Batman by multiple directors to get to the point where we finally get a good fist fight in a movie about a fist fighting superhero. But Burton could never get the suit to move in any believable
Yeah.
way, so it's all impressionistic there. And Schumacher didn't really have any luck with it either.
No.
They're a bit more mobile in his
I-
bodysuits, but
I like the Catwoman fuck fight. I mean, but mostly because it's a fuck fight. It's not really like a good fight. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'd say about some of the stuff Batman Begins too. I mean, not it's a fuck fight because obviously it's very sexless.
Yeah.
Because
There's
it's
no
a
sex
Nolan
here.
movie.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like Chris was saying, like the big tumbler chase, like that is, it's fine as a car chase if you were watching it, just as a scene unto itself. It's not super exciting. What's kind of cool about it, well, I'd say about the action scenes in this, including the dock scene as one of them, is that they're very well scripted. That there are beats within those action scenes that like relay back to things that were set up earlier in the movie, and like they're doing different things. He's employing different tactics throughout that chase, where now he's using the bat sonar thing, and he's conquered his fear of the swarm of bats, and now he's using them as a weapon.
Cool.
And now he's getting away, and the tumbler is showing off different moves that it's got, where it can jump from building to building and shut it off. Like sort of blend into the night, which is kind of cool. Except it's also, that's part of the trouble it's working with here is, if it's a black car with its lights off driving in the dark, it's hard to make that a visually exciting scene to look at, but because of this grounded aesthetic, we kind of have to establish how it can get totally lost in the night, even while being followed by helicopters, and like not, you can get back to the Batcave, which is something that's always be hard to believe that there's going to be like tracks, right? From this tank.
What are people's thoughts on the tumbler? I don't know.
Overrated. It's
kind of cool, but
from the of all the Batman vehicles and all of Batman lore, it's kind of just lame. I don't. It's not very aesthetically pleasing, and to me, none of the scenes where it's really featured all that much are really ever that exciting.
I think it's interesting to look at. I mean, it's so big and impractical, but that's the problem, is that this is all about practicality in a sense. Like they show why he has a cape in this. Like, oh, you need that so you can fly from a thing. Like it's a learning curve for him. That thing just is like the least practical vehicle, in the world. Not least of all for leaving tracks. I mean, it's just like. I mean, I guess you can destroy other vehicles if you drive into them, but
it's supposed to be practical in a military context.
Yes,
right.
Like,
not
the
urban.
Batmobile is always sort of a tank, but
yeah.
And
in terms of
you could be sleeker than that. You can look cooler.
Mm-hmm.
Even the Burton Batmobile was a tank, like that in the big sequence where it goes in and blows up the chemical factory and all that.
Still the coolest Batmobile.
Looked cool and sleek.
Yeah. They weren't going to top that one, but they just went so far in the other direction. And I understand that after those movies, they wanted to go as far away from anything in Batman and Robin, and rightfully so. But they didn't need to do it with the Batmobile. It's just not a cool vehicle. You want the Batmobile to be cool. You want to go, oh man, I need to get a Ertl model of that. But nobody wants the Ertl model of the Tumbler.
No. And they never really cracked this over the course of this franchise, this trilogy either. I mean, don't they add the plane in the third one, and it's a real big yeah. Oh well.
All right, so new question.
Yeah.
What is the most unintentionally funny moment in this film? I'll give you a short list of options here.
Yeah.
All right.
We can have Wilkinson's pronunciation of like a dog.
I think they want.
You can do that.
Yeah,
you can do the merely do card.
Merely do card.
You can do the merely do card line. And then my last one is, that during that tumbler chase, the whole premise of the chase is that Rachel has been dosed with a fear-inducing toxin that is going to cause her to have like a stress-induced heart attack and die. And during this time, Batman is driving her around in this militarized black tumbler, leaping from rooftop to rooftop and shrieking into her face, "Rachel, stay with me!"
I feel cheated that they didn't give us a POV shot of Demon Batman that we saw earlier
with Rachel. Oh, I love that Demon Batman. That is so good.
Yeah. Demon Batman.
Yeah, that's really good. I love Demon Batman.
But if you'd like driving the car,
they should have done that. That would have been perfect.
Exactly.
Oh wow. I didn't even think of that.
From her perspective, he could have been driving like an Adam West Batmobile. Like, give us something cooler and funner.
I
Well,
really like that fear toxin stuff, man. That they could that gives them license to do these creepy images, and this
Mhm.
quote unquote grounded version of the story that they can do. The weird bat face flying through the fog, or I guess that scarecrow on the horse isn't actually a fear toxin image, but it looks
no,
like one. I,
Mhm.
that, that one
I
looked
love
kind
all
of
that shit.
lame. But
No, he looks like a headless horseman kind of thing or something. He's got the,
that one, out of all the fear-induced stuff, that was the one where I was like, that's not that scary. I mean, at least not
Yeah,
compared to Demon
we found a
Batman. I mean,
horse.
ah,
yeah. Gargoyle Batman was way better,
oh
Gargoyle
yeah.
Batman's
and
the
we could.
best. Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
we probably should have gotten a little more of a sequence there uh, of the Scarecrow riding around chasing them, and we could have got some Joffrey point of view stuff that made him look even more demonic and headless horseman. But they just she tases him and he rides off.
Yeah, well, he's got to come back. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna.
Well,
He's the runner villain for the. How crazy is that?
That
Scarecrow
is
is the
strange.
villain in all three films.
So strange.
Yeah.
if I had to kind of think of something that is sort of, I would say, unintentionally funny, it's okay. So the guy in the League of Shadows headquarters who's in the cage because he killed the other. Far- I mean,
He
that
was a
guy
farmer.
dies, but that guy
Yeah.
dies, right? I mean, there's no
After
way
Batman went through all that trouble to save him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no way that guy lived. I feel like,
Well, I don't think Batman was going to save him so much as I'm not going to kill him myself. I'm going to.
Right.
I'm
Well,
not going to be have the guilt of his
He ends
murder
up going
on
to
me.
great lengths to save Liam Neeson, who was
yeah.
he's ostensibly supposed to be saving this farmer from.
Now, where do you guys fall on the whole? Did Batman kill Ra's al Ghul, or did he not kill him?
Excellent question. Okay.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know.
he did.
I mean, pretty
I
much,
mean,
right?
it's justified. Like, I think you can have a rule against killing people and still be in a
Yeah, I don't have to save him. Sure.
fight to the death that the other person completely instigated.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fine. I don't hold that one against
Yeah.
Batman, but
Is that now? To some people, this is a big thing with the whole Batman killing. Like, is that really a big issue for you guys? Like, I've never. First off, I
No.
always find like that's pretty much that's almost all superheroes. None of them are really going around murdering. Some of them do occasionally, but like Hawkman isn't really killing anybody, and the Flash isn't killing
yeah, Green Lantern's
people.
not murking fools.
No, and it seems like everyone's always so caught up with Batman can't kill. It's just not right. It's the code. It's this. It's that. The other. It's like I've seen him kill plenty of people on these movies, and I never think any less of Batman.
No, it's just he kills more in the movies than he does in the comics because the movies don't need villains to recur over and over again the way comics do. So they just can, and it's fine when he does.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I do think it actually is a character point that is developed in the Nolan films, and with and it's interesting. Like he gets to know criminals. He understands the criminal psyche and what drives them, and it's based on hunger for this guy, or whatever. So I like that he doesn't kill in these. I don't need Batman always to never kill, though. I certainly don't care about that. The Burton Batman kills the shit out of people, and I love that.
Oh yeah. Oh my god. He straps the bomb on the guy from over the top. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, the Affleck Batman, I find just sort of ridiculous. He certainly kills people, but it's just like, yeah, I'm killing you, fuck you. That's the vibe that he is giving out. So that's just not so cool. But it's
even the ridiculous thing about the Affleck Batman is that when he doesn't kill them and sends them to jail, he does this incredibly more sadistic thing.
Oh yes,
of branding them in a way that supposedly it's established he knows means that they get killed in prison.
Yeah, that
I don't
means
understand
they get raped
how that
and
works.
then they get killed. Yeah, that's
but it's like, why? I don't understand why people are really against other criminals who got arrested by Batman.
I mean,
why?
It seems maybe just sport. I don't know. For fun, Who's going to get the next branded one?
Because I think that was I feel like, just from my memory, that was a bigger issue with Batman Begins was some people were not happy with how it ended between him and Ra's al Ghul, and that they felt like
I
that
recall
was
this. Yeah.
almost kind of a betrayal of the Batman character. And I just always found that to be
Yeah.
stupid. It's like, who? I mean, what else do you want to happen? You want Ra's al Ghul to go to prison? Who cares?
No, I mean, you're totally right that it was a big thing. I just that all three of us are on the same page here. None of us are going to
Yeah.
take that position.
I mean, I think the way they would handle it is he attempts to
Yeah.
save Raj Al Ghul and fails. You know, that would be the way you'd solve it, I would think. Which
He didn't
again,
even try.
you know,
He's
I don't
just
care.
like,
I don't
see
care.
ya.
No. That would, yeah. I mean, it's cutting out the middleman of something we know is going to happen. You know, it's that cliche thing that I hate in any movie where, like, I mean, it's the Lethal Weapon.
He's
thing,
not
but
worth
it's
it.
done in a meal. Yeah, like, no, you're not worth it. I'm not going to kill you. And then, oh no, he grabbed a gun, so I have to kill him. You know that they. You've seen it 1,000 times. That's the worst. Anything that avoids that is great. And if it's as simple as just like, well, you know, I don't actually have to save you. My code will technically still be intact if I just leave. That's
Honestly,
kind of
what he
fun.
should have said is, "I don't have to save you again," because he did go
Right.
to great
That's
lengths to
true.
save him like earlier in the movie
Mhm.
after
should've-
Mason was trying to kill him.
He probably should have mentioned that. I did this once, not twice.
So yeah, who cares? It's fine. It's cool. It's not the best ending, I think, for Raj Al Ghul they could have come up with maybe. And I mean that the whole, you know, third act action scene. You know what? No,
No.
I'm full of shit. I like it. I think it's good. I enjoy that whole sequence with the Narrows and the fear toxin and the microwaving the water. I like it all. It's fine.
I like Gordon
Not
and the
amazing.
tumbler. Gordon and the tumbler
Yeah.
is good stuff. That's probably the best use of the tumbler is when he's driving it.
I
Yeah,
agree.
you know, that's what, like, another thing where I'd say it's well scripted, that they find, like, you know, they concoct reasons why, like, the police are all trapped over here and Gordon's the only one who can get off. And of course, the tumbler has been established as designed to jump over rivers to tow bridge cables or whatever. So it's the one thing that can get out, and Gordon can do it, contribute to his thing. Unfortunately, it's just shot in a way that, I mean, I don't have the cinematic vocabulary to say how, like, it should be shot, but it's just not terribly exciting. I think that I like the design of, like, the 4-story L train.
Yeah, that looks
It's like
cool.
5 stories tall. Like, I feel like you could do could have done a more elaborate action sequence there, where they're like not just like going from one car to the next, but like dropping down to a different tier of moving train, and moving back and forth. But Nolan's action chops are just not there.
Yeah, that final confrontation needed to be bigger. It's just not worthy of the film.
I hear you, but it is thematically sound in that it is, you know, the train his
scripted, that's what
father
I'm saying.
built headed towards Wayne Enterprises, which is the central hub of the city. You know, it's all tied into his legacy and the weight of what he's carrying around, and his dad who did all these things to save the city, but and not his mom who did nothing, and we never talk about her. But it all works for me. It all ties into the idea of what this film is, which is, why does this guy do what he does? You know, really, like, you know, beyond just he's a kid superhero. What is the psychology that drives him? It's, you know, it reminds me of like Seven. You know, when we were talking about that, you know, last year, that is a ridiculous premise in a sense. You know, it is a big, flashy, silly idea for a character. Serial killer kills after the 7 deadly sins, and then the movie goes into, well, who would that be? How does that guy exist? Like, real world psychology. What creates a guy who kills people based on the 7 deadly sins? Or what creates a guy who dresses up as a bat and uses his massive wealth to beat up the poor people of the city, you know, for good? And why do we like him for that? Like, it answers all those questions. That's what's so
That's what I'm saying. That stuff is there on the page. It's in the script, that all the elements thematically play into the action beats.
You're right.
It's the filmmaking itself is missing a sort of visceral snap to it. But the elements are all there, which makes it still like kind of sasatisfying to watch. It's not infuriating or boring. Or
not
whatever.
infuriating or boring. Yes.
No, I'd say. I mean,
Good
I don't know.
quote.
Would anybody say that? Would anybody say that the end of this movie is the best part? I don't think anybody's ever claimed such a thing.
No.
The first hour and a half is like where all the all the good stuff is.
Where the Tom Wilkinson scenes are. Yes.
Oh, for sure. I mean, basically, after two Burton films and two Schumacher films, where everybody is talking about God, it's like Batman's a supporting character in his own movie. They finally said, "Well, here we're going to give you Batman, right? Shove it right down your throat, and you're going to know everything there is to know about Batman." And that's what's fine. And I also think that beyond just Nolan, I mean, here I'm gonna get pretty cliche right here. So you have Batman and Robin comes out summer of 97. You have Batman
Yeah.
Begins coming out summer of '05. What happens virtually right in the middle of those? 9/11. So you kind of
Yeah.
have that weighing over this movie also, so it's, I don't mean to get so, I don't want to play the 9/11 card too heavy, but I think there is, something to be said for kind of the mood of what was going on in those years, and having a little bit of an influence over what was going on in this movie.
Well, The Dark
Certainly.
Knight's head on with that. Like
Right.
that's War on Terror. Here it is. But yeah, I mean, 9/11 certainly influenced everything that happened in the next 10 years or up till today. And I think you can definitely see it in all films, and this one is no exception. I do. I don't know. I mean, the thing is, knowing the history of what they were trying to do, knowing all the different versions of this movie that were going to happen, there was the Darren Aronofsky one for a while that they were trying to
Right.
do, which was
Yes.
even more stripped down.
Mm.
Yeah,
Sounded kind of dumb,
that
actually.
was
To
like
me. But,
legit
like,
year one type stuff.
yeah. hmm there was the weird fifth in the chronology where they tried to pay, like they were going to give Jack Nicholson $50 million to come back as the Joker's ghost.
Well,
Uh,
there was also the
that was
rumor. There was also the rumor. This was before Batman and Robin came out, where it was going to be Howard Stern as Scarecrow.
Oh
Oh, I
yeah,
remember
I
that.
remember
Yeah,
that rumor.
yeah. Which somehow I think Stern probably started
Wow.
that himself. But it's
Yeah.
in those
Can-
movies it would have kind of made sense. I mean, somewhat.
that would be the progression. I mean, that
Yeah,
that would be the only place to go after Batman and Robin. I mean,
yeah.
But I mean that it would have made sense that Howard Stern just would have played the Scarecrow as the Joker. But those movies were already getting to the point where just every villain was just Batman Forever is just what we have the Riddler played as the Joker. And
Yeah.
Two-Face basically
Two-Face.
played as the Joker.
Yeah.
Oh man, we're never going to talk about Batman Forever on this show, I don't think. But
No.
just a
now.
quick moment: is there a worse superhero villain performance than Tommy Lee Jones as
Yeah.
Two-Face? I mean, and it's not all his fault, although he certainly has some share of the blame. But like everything about that is just the shittiest character ever.
Well, there's
Just-
that story that
Design.
there's the story that Jim Carrey tells, because I guess Tommy Lee Jones just did not like Jim Carrey, and
It's a great story.
yeah, it's basically like, what was it? I think it was it. I cannot sanction your tomfoolery. Was that it, or is it? Am I
Your
mixing-
buffoonery.
Buffoonery. Yeah. If
Yeah,
if I'm Jim Carrey, I'm like, look at your dailies. What are you talking about?
yeah.
You're going way broader than I've ever gone in my life. I don't know what you're talking about, old man.
And you're shit at it. You're just terrible. Like that movie feels like a man who is scared of getting upstaged, like trying his
Yeah.
best and
Oh,
failing.
yeah.
It's just like that's.
When I
it's
first
pathetic.
heard that he
It is a
was
pathetic
cast
performance.
when I first heard that he was gonna be Two-Face, I was like, oh man, I mean, coming off of like Under Siege and The Fugitive, I was like, that's perfect. He is gonna be so good as Two-Face. And then it's like, whoa, I mean, it was just so misguided.
He'd probably be great as a real version of Two-Face, as
Oh,
opposed to
would've.
whatever the fuck.
Yeah, that's
that
the thing.
was. Yeah, like, yeah.
He could have been if they had made The Dark Knight 10 years earlier, he could have been Harvey Dent and done like a real version of it that's
Yeah.
fucked up and tortured and more grounded. But for whatever reason, he's trying to out Jim Carrey, and
Mm-hmm.
of
Yeah.
all the people that's an impossible
Shameful.
task for anybody.
Yeah.
But there are very few people in the world less suited to attempt it than Tommy Lee Jones.
It's interesting. You could do Dark Knight like in 1989. Like take that script, shoot it with Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson, Tommy Lee Jones, and it fucking rules, man. That's a real
Yeah.
good movie. That'd be
And keep
Incredible.
Eric Roberts.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah,
of course.
you could
Keep him.
You might Tiny Lister might read a little young, but
Yeah.
other than
I mean, I wouldn't
he's
want to
still there. He's
trade.
only
I
a
wouldn't
couple
want
years
Pat
out.
Hingle doing that much either. Yeah.
Oh, hey, you take that back. Sir.
Yeah, come on.
He's so
Don't,
This is a
don't,
pro Pat Hingle
He's a
podcast. You know,
terrible
know that from the
Commissioner
start.
Gordon. He
don't
is
besmirch Pat
awful
Hingle.
in that role. He is embarrassing in that role.
What?
Yeah. He's bad. He's a bad Commissioner Gordon.
No,
Oh
they
my
just don't
God.
give him
He
anything to
sucks.
do.
What?
He's a fat buffoon.
Oh, come on.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, I guess this is just my introduction to Jim Gordon. It's like, isn't that who Commissioner Gordon is?
I mean,
Like,
no, he's
I
cool.
o-
He's like Oldman.
Until
is
Gary
great.
Oldman came along, I only knew it, Adam West and the
Right,
Burton
yeah.
Batman. So yeah, that was all.
That was it.
I suppose the animated series made him into a bit.
Yeah,
More of a character for me.
that's a good Burton. Any of you guys think Mask of the Phantasm is the best one? Best Batman film?
No.
Yeah, good. Okay, me neither.
People,
Cool.
yeah, that's another
It's-
take.
it's good.
It's fine as a Batman animated movie, but
Yeah.
whenever I hear, oh, that's really the best Batman, and no, it's
It's
not. Be
ridiculous,
quiet. Don't talk anymore, and let's go watch a real movie.
Yeah, it's the most comics accurate, whatever. That's
Mhm.
what they mean by that, and I suppose that's fine if that's what you're into. But no, I mean, Dark Knight, I think, is head and shoulders the best Batman movie.
I mean, it's probably the best
you can
comic
make
book movie. I mean,
make a strong case that
yeah.
it's the best superhero movie. Period.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's wrap things up here. But I
Yep.
want to circle back to what I was saying at the very beginning. Like, there's a couple of different trends that I want to know, you guys.
Mhm.
To what extent can we hold Batman Begins responsible for the following three trends?
Yeah.
That have sort of take over blockbuster filmmaking in the subsequent 10 to 15 years. You got prequels. That just the fact that we started seeing more and more prequels, I think they're seen as more viable, because prior to that we'd only had the Star Wars prequels, really, and they were debacles. So I think, again, the way this plays as a prequel, even though it's not actually, we haven't seen a later iteration of this character before. It's still, I think it made people think, oh, we can start real early, and we don't have to progress things very far at all to set up this franchise. And I think, despite the success of this trilogy, that's mostly been for the bad, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
I here's the thing. I would quibble with the word prequel there. I would say reboot. And yes, I know what you mean with the prequel, but the reboot, I think, is the problem.
Well, I was going to be a little more specific there and say that was category number 2, was the gritty reboot, the one that's trying
gritty.
to ground James Bond in a more, or the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, for fuck's sake, in a more real, bloody, emotionally, whatever context. And that works here and kind of works for James Bond, but I feel like that's mostly been a bust.
Sure, Amazing Spider-Man is sort of the ground zero shitty version of it. And,
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that even gritty? I don't know. It's ostensibly.
It has Dennis Leary. He's pretty gritty.
Yeah, it's certainly a reboot. But I mean, I guess you could say that the entire Snyderverse is a gritty reboot.
That's
and
the whole,
that all is not good. Yeah,
that
certainly.
Enormous failure of a Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah, just so. But
well, actually, around the same time, I think maybe it's not just Batman Begins, because I think one of the other most successful version of the gritty reboot actually working is Battlestar Galactica on TV.
Yeah,
that started
true.
right before this came out.
That's true. Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
Yeah,
I don't know how influential it was for major films, but it was on TV.
Yeah, that's why I think this is more influential. But I think as a proof of concept, I think
it can work if you do
both
it good. It's just
and I think
4
that
times out of
Batman
5, it's not good.
Batman Begins convinces studios that that's a brass ring worth chasing. I think maybe the combination of Batman Begins and Battlestar Galactica convince writers and creators that, oh, this is a thing that can be done really well and is worth attempting.
Well, I mean, it's in the proof there that those are both successful. I mean, it can be done well,
It certainly
and
can.
if you do it well, it's worth attempting. But you know, it
Yeah,
doesn't really get done that
it
well.
all
Well,
depends
or it does.
who's doing
Casino
it.
Royale's great too. Yeah,
It is. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean,
Mm.
I've always said that, like, I kind of blame the Bourne films for ruining action movies for a good 7 to 8 years,
Mhm.
and that's that's more of the issue that I have with kind of that the whole gritty. We're gonna everything's kind of down and dirty and played straightforward, and we're just gonna kind of suck the fun out of every bit of action that we can. That I tend to blame that more on the Bourne films.
I put that at the Nolan series feet way more than the Bourne series. I
No,
mean, I kind of see what you're saying, but
I have
Yeah, I
way
mean,
more fun with the Nolan Batman movies than I do with the Bourne films.
yeah, but they're good means they're going to get the bad impersonations. Like they wouldn't have been as influential if they weren't so successful in their own terms. If they
but I
didn't
think the
nail it,
operative difference for
yeah,
me there is that Bourne is taking an already sort of dark genre of espionage, whatever, actioners, uh, whereas Batman is taking something that is
yeah,
kid friendly and kid oriented and trying to do the same thing. So it's pulling the material farther to that gritty place. And so I think that's the thing that is more ridiculous to me when we get trying to make a gritty version of the Power Rangers or the Perry Mason reboot
Oh
where
my god,
I think
yeah,
he got his testicles blown off in the Argonne Forest or some shit.
yeah.
But
That's over, right? That's not
well,
coming back, is it? That Perry
there's no
Mason.
way it is.
Yeah,
It
that.
must have cost like $800 million. There's
Oh
no way
my
they did
god,
like doing that.
that was. Though it's funny that we're talking so much about how Batman Begins. It's the grounded. It's taking what was going on in the previous movies, throwing it all out the window. That's kind of how the first Burton movie was looked at when it came out. I mean, it was sort of like,
yeah.
oh, this
Yeah.
is the gritty Batman that we've never seen before. Look, he's all in black. It's is it too violent for kids? Maybe it shouldn't be PG
Yeah.
13. So it's kind of interesting that it didn't take long for that to become kind of a big joke, and then they had to go back and ground it again for Batman Begins.
Well, we've talked about this before. It's the the gritty reboot premise idea notion is not inherently good or bad. Like if you do a
Right.
good one, you do a good version of it. If you make Batman Begins in the Dark Knight, then it's great and people love it. And there's no one's going to complain about that. No one's mad about these movies.
Yeah,
No
Yeah.
matter what they inspired, because any good thing inspires
Mm.
shitty impersonations of it. Like how the MCU, everything tried to be the MCU for a while there, like the dark universe. It's just going to happen. What the problem is you see all the impersonations, give it a bad name, and the Snyder ones in particular, as we were talking about,
Yeah.
they're not like really adult. They're not mature. They're just
no,
violent. They're
right.
actually
Right.
quite juvenile in many ways. They're silly and dumb. They're just sort of gross to look at as well. And I don't know.
Exactly.
Well, they're just
He breaks
they're
somebody's jaw or whatever he does. Yeah,
I mean, they're
and
and
then
as violent as they are, they're just boring. I mean,
they are
there's
boring.
never anything. I mean, they're endless. They just go. I mean, the Nolan movies are long, but to me, I don't feel like you feel them.
No,
Maybe Strikes Again somewhat, but gosh, the
yeah,
Snyder stuff. It's like how many times are you checking your watch during those movies?
yeah, they're not
And,
fun. I think
and
it's
I'm
because
looking
you
up
don't
and
give
it's
a
still in slow
shit.
motion.
You
Yeah,
don't give a shit about the characters. You don't give a shit about any
no,
character in those.
no,
Yeah.
Because they have kind of returned them to their sort of elemental comic book, for kids panel status, and then just smeared violence on top of it,
Yeah.
and
Just smeared blood and a
yeah,
nipple on it to make it
um,
like
there
give it an R rating.
there's no psychology, like this film is
Right.
kind of like it's simple psychology, but it is about the character's brain processes. It's about what makes him the character. It is an
yeah,
adult film in that it's not because it's violent, but because it's doing kind of an adult's work of telling the story. It's doing it in a mature way, and that's what people responded to, not that it was gritty. Don't give it. If this had been silly, it's like the MCU is not gritty, and people responded to that, and because it was well done, or certain parts at certain moments were well done, and that's the key, rather than any of the things that the studios chase. And this is nothing new. Everyone knows this. Really, anyone listening to this podcast knows this. Like if they do the things correctly, then you can do anything. It's when you start chasing trends and take the wrong messages and just assume, well, the Bourne movies were successful, so we're just going to shoot all our action scenes that way. That's when you run into trouble.
That's when you get Max Payne.
Yeah.
yeah. When something's really successful, I guess, and this goes beyond the film industry, obviously, but it's so much easier to just try and copy like the most distinctive part of it, or like
the obvious
flashiest, or
signifiers.
just the easiest. The easy signifiers of a thing, more than it is to identify what is actually making it work and replicate that. Like it's like people love like this one sports car or whatever. So let's make our hood ornament look like theirs and not like actually rebuild the engine that's underneath there working it.
I mean, beyond that, I'm also not convinced that Snyder was like, yeah, what I really want to do is, something like the Nolan films. I think he kind of wanted to be like, I want something where Batman sends people to prison and they get killed, like juvenile edgelord shit. That seems to be what he was after. So, I mean, in that sense, it was successful, I guess. But,
well, that was my last category of things to mention. That is this responsible for giving us R-rated superhero movies and shows?
Of course it is. Of course, it's responsible for so many of that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we get like a Watchmen movie if this doesn't happen. I don't think
but Watchmen predate. I mean, the source material was there.
Well, and Dark Knight Rises predates, or Dark Knight Returns predates even the '89 Batman. Like the comics were always there. They always had these things.
Oh yeah. Watchmen.
They were niche.
Sure is directly from these movies.
How much of Snyder's career is directly from this? I mean, there's the bigger question: is like, do we have Zack Snyder without Batman Begins?
I'll give him Watchmen. I think that's pretty good. A lot of people don't like it.
Watchmen movie? Oh no,
I do like it. I do. I think it's pretty good. That's probably the only movie of his I do like.
Anything good about it is from the source material. It is just it is an all-time apex of mangling the source material with just the complete wrong approach, 180 degrees wrong.
It is fascinating in that he doesn't change any of the narrative really, and even makes it look exactly like the comic as much as he can, and still somehow completely misses it. It's a weird one. You'd almost have to study it in school or something to know.
It's interesting in that way.
Yeah. There it has things like you said. There's stuff that's just in the source material that works. Jackie Earle Haley as Rorschach is.
Oh, he's great.
I mean, try to fuck that up. You can't. It's going to be okay no matter what, and that's about as far as it gets. It's okay, but I don't
know. It's just as much as I've not liked any of the superhero stuff he's done lately. For some reason, I've found Watchmen to be good. I'll go ahead and say, I'll use the 4-letter word good.
I think it's a defensible position. I don't.
It's got great characters and a good story that are all there in the source material.
That opening credits sequence is an all-timer.
Oh
sure.
Yeah.
It's got some stuff, but it's not what I wanted from a Watchmen film. I have to admit.
Yeah. And I'll say I totally understand how Warner Brothers got themselves stuck with Zack Snyder. That he seemed like a perfect bridge, his sensibility of taking some of the more mature aspects of the Nolan trilogy and then grafting it on to a like bigger, glossier, more crowd pleasing package. Like if you're going to do sort of more more violent, but also just more basic superhero movies, his aesthetic is perfect for that.
That's true. I don't know why it didn't work as like it did. I don't fully understand.
Some people love it, I guess. I don't know.
Their failure. I don't. I don't. I could figure it out maybe if I was like, I'm gonna watch these again and figure it out. But that seems like a real chore. I think I'm done with those.
We got other stuff to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Now,
have either of you sat through the? I don't even want to say it. Like, it just sounds stupid saying whatever his cut, but whatever his version of the Justice
The
League.
Snyder Cut.
Yeah, we did a
God.
thing on it. We did an
We did a
episode
whole
on it.
podcast on it.
Yeah.
Oh, you did? All right, well, because
Not a
I didn't
fan.
I didn't watch it, so that's probably why I didn't listen.
It's not. I mean, look, it's. I guess there are things in it that are better than the original, but the real problem is
Yeah.
it's 4 hours long. And do you
Yeah.
want to watch a 4 hour long version of that movie? I certainly
No.
don't. You know,
No.
like, is it technically got better stuff in it? Maybe, but only because the bar is really low. And
It's
you
got
know,
some better stuff in it, but it's not
but
the better stuff that it's adding. Like it's like an eighth of the screen time that it's adding is the good stuff.
Yeah,
Like you just don't need all this other chaff that's going in there.
I'm never gonna see it again.
All right, we got to the point where we're talking about everything but Batman Begins.
Yeah,
So
I
we should
will
wrap
not
this
see
up.
it probably ever. Period. I saw the original version, and that was plenty.
Yeah, you're good. I mean, look, people like it, whatever. But no, I mean, this is the version I want, you know, of Batman. I don't like. I here's the thing. I don't think the new Pattinson one has much of a chance of matching this. I think that this kind of said it all in a sense, and that looks to me like they're just doing a grittier version of this movie. And I kind of just like, well, that doesn't sound that interesting to me. I don't care. My main interest in it is like, how much is Colin Farrell going to be like Tom Wilkinson in this? That's what I want mostly. Beyond that, I'm kind of like, how good could it possibly be? And maybe it'll surprise me, but I'm not that excited, even though, you know, it's no, even though I'm not that excited for it.
It feels
on
like
the
they've
list.
Done it,
you
it's
know?
the list of movies that you'll see out of obligation, but you're not really that pumped for it, and that's pretty much where I am with it. I mean, I think the trailers have been fine. They've been okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, I will go see it, but in terms of like, oh, I gotta catch that, you know, the Thursday night 7 o'clock showing. No.
Well, we're just getting older too, you know.
Yeah, that's true too.
It was easier to do that 17 years ago.
Yeah.
But I go to a lot of movies the Thursday night now. I like it because there's usually not many people around.
Yeah, it's not bad when you get to. No, I remember when this was coming out, I was like, "Ooh, King Kong! I'm going to the midnight showing." Yeah, you know, that was that. You know, when Batman came out, that's who I was, and you know, and that those days are gone, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, but yeah. So maybe I'd be more psyched for, you know, Batman, the 10th Batman film, if you know, if I were younger and I had less of a, if I hadn't been through the ringer so often with goddamn Batman. I don't know what it would take to get me excited, like really excited about a new Batman film. I can't imagine.
My approach as I get older, though, is I haven't watched the trailers. I try not to get excited about it. Like, it's so much easier to be disappointed. Like, I know I'm going to end up seeing the new Batman movie.
Fair enough. Same here. I'm going to see the goddamn thing.
I try not to build up any expectations around it, and it can disappoint me. I mean, I've got enough Batman like baggage, I guess, built up over decades of being a dork that I don't need it to be that specific. Like, I'll see it. It's fine.
Well, I'll tell you what would get you excited for a new Batman movie. It would never. It'll take probably about at least. It would take 5 or 6 huge bombs in a row from this person for this to happen. But if Nolan came back,
sure.
I would do it.
Look, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I
would, but I mean,
would I be excited? I might be more worried than excited. You know, like that's the thing. Like again, we're seeing all the damn Batman movies, fine, but like actually, like, oh hell yeah, a new Batman. It's gonna take a lot, and I think a lot of that is because Nolan kind of put the bar really high, and
it's a whole other bag of worms too. I am past the point of being excited of people like, oh, this creative team has been away for 10 or 15 years and they're coming back to the thing. That you might occasionally get like a Twin Peaks The Return out of that, but like just yesterday they announced they're going to do another season of Party Down after like 11 years. I'm like, man, I love that show and I do not care to see them in their 40s doing the same shit. Like,
that sounds very sad. I mean, the characters, that would be very sad for the characters, which I guess was the whole point.
It was always there was always a tinge of melancholy to that show, but now it's just going to be pathetic if they're really into the exact same delusions. Is my perspective. I don't know. I'm taking this now we're going far afield, but
Right.
that's I felt like when Arrested Development came back, that people had lobbied for that for years, and it was so exciting when that because that was new at the time that never happened,
And
and now it's like it's
It
been 8 years and we're
happens.
coming back, and now like there's something weirdly sad about this, the way that these like the world has moved on and these characters have not in the slightest, and now they're just visibly older doing the exact same thing.
it's rare when they
Nothing
pull it off.
is ever really canceled anymore. It's
Yeah.
basically,
Mm.
well, CBS is ending this show, but now Netflix will pick it up and Peacock will pick it up and whoever will pick it up, and it'll go on. Everything goes on forever now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hell, Murphy Brown can come back. Anything can happen.
Oh
But
man, I saw one episode of that, and oh my god, I've never
Yeah,
been
same
so
here.
ashamed to be a Joe Regalbuto fan.
but I don't think we can lay that at Batman Begins' feet. Like, yes, it was
No.
reviving a franchise that Joel Schumacher had killed, but it's Batman was bigger than that always. Like,
Yeah, there was
he
always
was
gonna be
always
another
going to return.
Batman.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, Batman,
and
they're always going to try to get something out of that property, and I think that we're lucky that it ended up being Nolan who thankfully took it over, and like I
Big
said,
time.
outside of the action, I really don't have too many gripes with the movie. I think it's exactly what you want out of a Batman origin story, and yeah, it delivers exactly what it's promising to do.
I agree with that. I think this is a pretty big success. Personally, I'm pretty psyched to continue into Dark Knight. That one's good too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but first we have to stop off at the Prestige. That'll
Prestige.
be
Yeah.
our next one, right? So,
Uh-huh.
I remember I've only seen that one once, but I remember loving it, so I'm looking forward to that.
Interesting. I have complicated feelings about the Prestige. So we'll talk about that one next, and then plenty more Batman. So much more Batman. So
Of course.
this is ongoing. Uh, thank you very much, Chris. As always, one of our favorites, man. Thanks again.
Oh, well, thanks for having me back, and yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say about the rest of Nolan's movies, and especially the Batman ones.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, we'll talk to you again soon about something, I'm sure.
All right.
I mean,
take
you're
it easy.
already on dock for our stuff we've already recorded, so
Hey,
people will keep
that makes
hearing
it
from
even
you.
easier.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. And Al, talk to you later too, man.
Wait, stay with me.